Hello, this is Jan Smith with Citizens for Family Preservation. This is a training video for Extended Family Part 2. What I forgot to mention on the first video is that if an adult child's attorney wants to recommend to the court that the children are placed with you, don't let them do that. Why? Because technically, if they're going to present that to the court, they're going to have a trial about you right there on the spot. If Child Protective Services objects to the children being placed with you for any reason whatsoever, because you're not a party to the case, you will not be able to defend yourself, then all the material that's presented is now documented and in a court of law. So it's best to take the matter into your own hands and end up in the courtroom by some of the definitions that I presented on tape number 1. The definitions that I presented is that you need to know the definition of a petition. You need to know the definition of a motion, a stay, and an affidavit. Those are the basic things that you need to know when starting a court process. What we're talking about now is what happens when the children have been placed in foster care and you're now trying to get custody, and it's been over 3 months. At the 3 to 6 month mark, you're starting to get into dangerous grounds. Anything over 6 months, they're going to try to adopt out to the foster family. They may still reunify with the parents at this point, but the likelihood of you getting the children is going to be pretty remote. Why? There's 2 basic concepts that they deal with. These concepts come out of 2 books. One is called Before the Best Interest of the Child, and the other one is Beyond the Best Interest of the Child. Beyond was the first one written, and it was written by 3 Jewish authors, all 3 of which came out of Yale. It's important and even critical to get these materials, read them from cover to cover, know what's in it, because you're going to need to argue what they have in these books, which is called A Child's Sense of Time, number 1, and number 2, psychological parenting, because those are the 2 concepts they're going to use to adopt out your children, your grandchildren. So, how do you argue these 2 doctrines? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the child's sense of time. Would you agree, for example, that a child has a different sense of time than an adult does? And take a minute to kind of meditate on that, because it's that meditation and it's that deer in a headlight look that causes them to be able to win every single time in a court of law. But let's take another look at this. Let's suppose a child, for example, is removed from a home rather violently. We have police bashing in the door, we have the children being removed, physically forcing them, they're maybe going to hospitals and they're getting checked in their private areas, checked all over their bodies, trying to find some kind of evidence against you. A, the child's sense of time means that in a week or 2 they'll completely forget about it, never to think about it again. Or B, they will remember it for the rest of their lives, and it will continue to traumatize them. You can see how they can use a child's sense of time to move a child into another situation, minimizing that experience, saying that a child's sense of time is different. Statistics show that children, once they have aged out of the foster care system, or even after adoption, will seek out the blood relatives. This kind of violates their beliefs on a child's sense of time, because a child never forgets their parents, and they often are bonded to their parents, they love their parents, and they are going to seek them out again at some point in time. They may seek out other extended family as well who are meaningful to them. A child's sense of time does not mean that they are no longer bonded to their family. But they're going to try to say that that's the case, and they're going to minimize the impact that the biological family has on a child. This is what they use in a court of law against children, against families, and how they break up children, families, and extended families using a child's sense of time. The other thing that they use is psychological parent. They minimize the relationship to a child by the biological parents, saying that the only reason that biological parents want to parent a child is egotistical. I want you to let that sink in for a second. If they're saying that, then they're saying that all mammals who raise their children are doing so only through egotistical means, that there's no other reason why a child or an adult would want to parent a child except that they want to fulfill their own ego. This, in my opinion, is a bunch of horses patootie. Along with everything else these people are teaching, they have no proof of the clinical psychology theories that embrace a child's sense of time and psychological parenting. They believe that, especially if a child is young enough, that if they remove the child from one situation and into another, the child will immediately or almost immediately transfer that dependence over to another caregiver, bond to them, and have such a deep relationship with them that they will completely forget about their parents, never to return. This is false beliefs, and it's constantly utilized within a court of law, and it's constantly utilized within Child Protective Services. There are theories that are being taught in Child Protective Services where the family is now antiquated and all children should be raised by the state within certain frameworks. They're being trained to view the family this way. And so you need to understand that as you're approaching a court of law, that they already have these ideas in place. They already believe it, and they've been at least practicing it for a minimum of 12 years or longer. There's a couple of different laws that they are going by. One of them, the first one, the original one, was CAPTA. You need to look up everything there is to know about CAPTA, along with a reading of the two books, Beyond the Best Interest of the Child and Before the Best Interest of the Child, that I previously stated. Understand it from cover to cover. Read it, meditate on it, write down all of your arguments, because you're going to need to present that in a court of law if they have been in foster care longer than 6 months. Child Protective Services will place with foster parents and then will try to relieve the fear of extended family by telling them that they're going to reunite with the parents. This is not something that you want to listen to, because if for some reason Child Protective Services decides that they no longer want to reunify with the parents, you have now lost all bonding and all contact, supposedly, according to their arguments, with the children, and you will never see them again. Also know that right from the beginning you need to get visitation so that you can monitor your relationship with them. You can continue the bonding, and so when you have to go to court, you can say, well, I've continued this bonding, I've had X number of hours with them per month, I've continued my support of that child and my relationship with that child. If you do not do this, they will adopt out the child, and they will use this loss of time with the child against you. Thank you. I'll have part 3 ready a little bit later.